Let me tell you a story about a man named John. Now, John was just like many of us, an ordinary guy living an ordinary life. He worked at a grocery store in a small town, stacking shelves, ringing up customers, and dreaming of a life that seemed out of reach. His days were long, his nights were lonely, and every morning felt like a repeat of the last. You see, John wasn't unhappy, but he wasn't happy either. He was stuck in a routine, a cycle that seemed impossible to break. He had dreams, big dreams, but he never took that first step. Fear, doubt, and the comfort of familiarity held him back. But one day, during a lunch break, John met someone who would change his life forever. An old man named Mr. Parker. Now, Mr. Parker was a former athlete, a man who had faced his own struggles and come out stronger. He looked at John and said, "Son, you look like someone with a heavy heart. What's holding you back?" John, unsure of himself, replied, "I don't know. Life is just complicated." Mr. Parker chuckled and shared his own story, a story of failure, loss, and ultimately, triumph. He ended with a line that stuck with John: "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." Simple, right? But sometimes, the simplest words carry the most weight. And that night, John couldn't sleep. He kept hearing Mr. Parker's words over and over in his mind. The next morning, he decided to do something different. He woke up an hour earlier. No big plans, no grand gestures, just one small change. And that's how it started. At first, it was tough. His body ached, his mind was filled with doubt, and some people even laughed at him. But John didn't stop. He kept moving forward. Every morning, he reminded himself, every step is a step forward. As John began to change, people noticed. Some even asked him for advice. So, he started a little group, a community of people who, like him, wanted more from life. He found joy in helping others, and for the first time, he felt like he was on the right path. But, life has a funny way of testing us, doesn't it? Just when things seemed to be going well, John's grocery store closed down. Just like that, he was left without a job, without security. He felt like he was right back where he started, maybe even worse. He almost gave up. Almost. But then he remembered something else Mr. Parker had said: when you reach your lowest point, that's when the real transformation begins. With nothing left to lose, John decided to take a risk. He started his own organic food delivery service, using the connections he'd built in his small group. It wasn't easy. There were days when he felt like he was fighting a losing battle. But this time, he wasn't alone. He had a community that believed in him, and he believed in himself. "John, I've come too far to give up now. Every failure is just a lesson in disguise." And you know what? It worked. Slowly but surely, his business grew. Word spread about this determined man who had turned his life around, and soon enough, he was invited to share his story on a bigger stage. A motivational seminar. Standing there, looking out at a room full of eager faces, John shared the one lesson he'd learned that had changed his life forever. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Take the moment and make it perfect. And as fate would have it, sitting in the audience was Mr. Parker. The two men met eyes, and John smiled. He knew that this journey wasn't just about success, it was about becoming the person he was always meant to be. 1. The only limit to our realization of tomorrow is our doubts of today. Franklin D. Roosevelt. 2. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Winston S. Churchill. 3. Believe you can and you're halfway there. Theodore Roosevelt.